Hi, this is Eric McLaughlin, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect CPA. So, if you've been with me for a little while, you know that I talk about my book, Make Money Your Employee, and I also make reference to The Richest Man in Babylon. And so today, we're going to talk about my budget versus actual. So, in previous episodes, don't remember which episode number it is, but you can look at my previous episodes on YouTube or on Facebook, and you can see where I talked about my budget for the rest of the year. And that was inspired by my twin brother, Derek McLaughlin, who I also had on previous episodes to talk about what we learned growing up about money and those kinds of things. And my brother, Derek, my twin brother, who's also or is a engineer, he works for GM, he shared that he does a budget for the entire year. And I was quite impressed with that because I was like, wow, you plan out a whole year in advance. And not only does he do a budget for the whole year at the top of the year, but he lives by his budget for the entire year, makes comparisons, sees where if he's over or under and what adjustments he needs to make if there's other expenses that pop up, or maybe he has additional income, what he's going to do with it. And that is such a critical point when you're dealing with money and making sure that you have money to put to work, right? Because if all you have coming in goes right back out, then that means that there's no room to do any extra, no savings, no emergency fund, no investing, no money to put to work. And that just simply means that we're in a cycle of what? Just working for our money. So the goal of me even doing this podcast is to really talk through how do we not just make a work for our money and move to making money our employee. And so one of the seven uh, laws in the richest man in Babylon, to talk about the seven laws of getting your purse to fattening. One of them is that you have to control your expenses, right? So if you're in this cycle, if you're watching this, you're in a cycle where all you've got coming in is going out, then that means that you've got to do some work to change that. Either you've got to find some additional income sources, or you've got to find how you're going to be able to cut your expenses. So listen, I've put my budget on here. So we're about to put this onto the screen here, my budget versus actual. So in the previous episode, right, I talked through, this was my budget for the rest of the year. And I started mid-year. So I had my brother on, I think it was in May or June of this year. And so once he came on the show, I said, you know what? I know I'm the CPA, right? So I'm the one that's usually telling folks you need to have spending plans, you need to have budgets, and those kinds of things. I don't do a budget normally, but I said I'm going to change that because if I'm going to be talking about money, we're going to be learning about money. I am trying to learn too. I also am trying to change my money habits so that I can increase the efficiencies in how I put my money to work, and also just continue to put create more room for my money to go to work. And so to that end, I did a budget. Started in June, but I wanted to start with doing a budget to actual for July because July was really the first month that I did this. So listen, this is how it works. So I presented my budget last time. We're just going to run right through the top. I'm going to tell you what insights I see. Feel free to share your comments in the comment section so that we can, dialogue back and forth. If you like, or if you're watching it later, please put your questions in there. I'll be happy to try to reach back out or give you answers as I can. But listen, one of the things you got to first of all know is how much money you bring in, right? Because you got to know what you're working with. So I put a budget of $32,847. That's what I'm saying I need to have to be able to cover the things that I need. Well, you can see budget to actual, right? Fell a little short of that by about $3,400. A little bit on the wage side, and definitely on the draws side. And for those of you that don't know what draws are simply, so I work for myself. I'm a CPA and I have an LLC. And so the draws are the money that I take directly from the business, either via transfer or a check. But I'm not running it through payroll where you have Social Security and Medicare, taking out a check, federal and state taxes, taking out, that's my wage number up here, the 2007, 20, and 50. That's what I'm taking out in terms of a wage, but then I'm drawing this 25,15523, which is almost $5,000 short of my budget. But we'll get into that as we go down through the budget to see how that really played out. Like, did that shortfall of almost $5,000 put me into a negative cash position in terms of what I had to do? I also had some other income that came through. I had some money come through from another business deal that I did. And then also, I just want to show this to you. Don't want to get really deep into it. But when you get into investments, right, with your broker, or if you use Robinhood or some other platform, you can, if the brokerage will let you, be able to borrow against your investments. And that's called a margin account. So typically what they'll say is, you have $10,000 in your investment account. They may say, hey, we're willing to let you borrow $5,000 against your holdings, right? And then what happens if you have a day like Monday, right, where there was a big market sell-off and stocks plummeted in their value and your portfolio value drops? Well, as long as in this particular instance, right, they might have said, listen, if your portfolio went from that $10,000 I talked about, went down to $8,000, you're okay. You still got more value in your stock portfolio than you've borrowed against it. In this example, $5,000. However, if my portfolio had dropped to $5,000 or less, potentially, they would have sold off my holdings to pay back the part of the loan that was short. If I didn't decide to put money back to cover that difference, right? Because they can't be losing. They can't be less and out money more than what has been borrowed. So anyway, I took money out of my Robinhood account because I needed to cover some additional things, and that's why this $672.92 is here. So that's the income, right? But now let's look at the expenses, because the income is important, but it's also important is how did I do against my budget, and whether or not did I go over or under. So you can see in my mortgage, that's going to be pretty static, right? Unless there's a change in my taxes and my insurance, which changes my escrow, my mortgage is going to be pretty static every month. So that's should be on point. So it is. This month, I had to pay the young lady that comes to clean our home. It's normally paid by my wife, but I paid it this month, and so that wasn't budgeted for, so I had to put the $150 in there, and that's where we're short. And then also I had an electric bill, but because I didn't pay the electric bill in the month of July, but paid it in August, it didn't go on July's bill. So again, there's some timing issues here. And I also want to say this is a cash budget. So this does not take into account things that I may have put on my credit card. I really want to kind of keep this simple in terms of how I presented the budget versus actual. And I'm just looking at a cash basis and not necessarily looking at things that I put onto my credit card. And you might say, why did you do that? Well, I just want to keep it simple and just really look at cash in, cash out. That's what I'm dealing with right now. My gas bill was $58.67, so I actually saved $23.33, right? So that means that I didn't run the gas as much, didn't have to use the stove as much. It's not cold right now, so I'm not using it to heat up the house. So that bill was actually less than budgeted, which is good, right? I saved some cash. But my water bill was higher. I budgeted $72, but it's actually $272. Well, if I look at my budget and I'm like, why did that happen? Well, the reason is in DeKalb County, and maybe in other counties, but in DeKalb County in Atlanta, Georgia, where I live, they had a huge issue with water meters. So for some reason, a lot of DeKalb residents have these crazy water bills, like thousands of dollars that you owe. I don't know if there was a leak or whatever it was. But in any case, basically what I did was I said I got to pay my regular water bill, and I've also got to pay against that balance. That's the arrangement that DeKalb County has made with its residents, is as long as you stay current and you pay on your past due each month, you won't have any problem with water service. And that's why that number is there. Alarm monitoring stays static because that's a contract, so I don't have any issues there. So you can see here, I actually was a little bit over $89.39. So that's going to play out if I didn't bring in enough cash, right? Remember, I was short at the top about almost $5,000. That's going to be problematic if I can't make it up somewhere in this budget. So again, very instructive, right? But let's look at my daily living expenses, right? So, here I seem to have saved, right? I actually did not spend my budgeted amount. I didn't go out as much to eat. So that's a plus, right? And I'm not sure why that was in July. I think because my wife was gone for work for a couple of weeks, so we didn't go out to eat, as much because she was out of town. Um, and I don't know. It just was just that kind of month. I guess summer month we decided to stay in, or might have put some stuff on my credit card. And then dry cleaning. I am terribly bad about picking up my dry clean, so I'll go months without picking up dry clean. So that also saved me in my budget too. But again, this is a plus, right? So if I was over in my home expenses by $89.39, but my living expenses are under, then that helps my budget situation because basically I overspent in one category but underspent in another. And that's kind of what the budget to actual really starts to show you is how your spending patterns going, and are you adjusting for where there's overages to make sure that you stay within your means overall. Let's look at transportation. So transportation, right? I had budgeted like 4,275 because I thought that we were going to take a trip before my son went off to college, but that didn't really work out. We had some other things we had to do, and candidly, we just said that we just can't take that trip right now. We couldn't afford to do that right now because we're preparing for him to go off to LSU, go Tigers. He's ready to go to LSU, and therefore our money really needs to be dedicated to making sure that he's straight for school and not necessarily trying to take another trip. And also, I should have showed pictures, but I'll maybe do that next time on next week's or next time's broadcast. It showed that my oldest son graduated from the Coast Guard. So we had to go support him, of course, and therefore we decided not to take this trip. Son graduated from Coast Guard. Youngest son's going off to LSU, and therefore we decided to not do those extra trips. So I did have to buy some plane tickets, and some of that money came out. So because we had to go up to where my son was graduating in Jersey, but some of that was on a credit card, some of that was cash, and therefore this transportation cost. And actually, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the wrong thing. So let me go back. I'm talking about what's happening later on in the budget. So let me speak to this slide, transportation, because I messed that up. Transportation, right? My fuel cost is less than budgeted. So I didn't drive as much, and I didn't put as much in terms of cash payments and in terms of gas and fuel, so I saved that. My insurance bill is actually not going to get paid until August. So the bill was in July, but I'm not paying it till August. The reason why it's so high, $3,535, is because basically for some reason my insurance company doubled up the payment for 1 month for whatever reason. So basically I got to skip June's payment, but now I got to pay double in July. So, but I didn't pay that in July. I'm actually paying that in August, and that's why I saved $3,535 here. So I basically saved $4,000, right? So you can see here that I was short my income budget by almost $5,000, right? But I just saved between this category, transportation and daily living, almost $4,600. So at the end of the day, if everything plays out well, I should have been okay. I should be okay, right? But we'll see how that comes as we go further down the budget. Entertainment, not much there. But again, basically, I went over a little bit of entertainment. I think we went out to eat or went to some. No, I took my wife out for her birthday. We went to the Georgia Aquarium. She went diving, so we paid for that. So a little bit over here, something I didn't budget for, but that's okay. And then we got health. So this is me going to the gym, the health club fees, doctor visits. That was a little bit higher because I had to make 2 payments in the month of July, and then life and disability insurance. I basically over budgeted for that category, and actually the actual payment is lower than that. So that saved me as well. So I was plus 344. So now you can see I'm plus almost $5,000. So that helped me overcome the fact that I was actually short in income. And that's what this budget to actual is going to show you, which is why I want to talk through this. This slide, this section right here, vacations, is really where I want to, what I was talking about before when I said I was planning to take a trip, couldn't take a trip, son graduated from the Coast Guard. Therefore, we didn't take the trip. So the trip was going to cost us about $4,000. Ended up only paying in cash because I had to do stuff with my son versus taking the actual trip, only about a little over $400. So that was a savings. Paid for a hotel that wasn't budgeted for. Didn't have any real food costs that I put out in cash. So I actually saved here another 3,000. So this was, you see, this is starting to balance out. So I didn't have the extra income, but I also changed up some of my expenses to help and make sure that I had cash available to do the things I need to do. No real recreation fees, um, my tithes. So my tithes budget is higher, but I'm never going to argue about tithes being higher than what I budgeted for, because if the Lord blesses me, I'm going to give him what's due his, and therefore that number is just is what it is. That's just what it's going to be. Um, and so that, that was, it was negative there, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about that. And then we get into personal, right? So the barber, I didn't pay as much going to the barber in cash, so I saved some money there. I didn't buy any gifts in the month of July, so that saved me some money there. So another 405 there. So this is all helpful. And then the financial obligations. You saw this the last time. You see I have a lot of financial obligations, a lot of credit cards. I'm paying that down as part of my goal, is to get this down. But right now, this is what it is. I think the biggest part that I want to show you in terms of this, if I get down to the bottom line, is that I budgeted for about 21,000 in payments, and I only made about $17,000 in payments. So where did those differences come into play? Well, one of them, my installment agreement with the Department of Labor, Department of Revenue for taxes is lower than I expected, just slightly, and that's good. And then my IRS installment payment, making that in August instead of July, so that saved me some cash. And then I also have differences here in my current tax payments. Those payments will be made later, so those weren't there either. But I also saved in terms of my retirement. So I just recently increased my actual contributions to my IRA, an individual retirement account, where I made it was going to be $100 a week. So that just took effect later on in the month of July. I didn't start at the beginning of July like I was going to, and therefore I saved some cash there. I did make my payments to my 401k. That's $2,347 a month, so that's good. I'm not going to run through everything on here, but my point being is that, again, because certain payments were either deferred or not made, that saved me $4,624.17, which is quite helpful in this budget. We'll see what August looks like. And then my last category, it just deals with some miscellaneous things. So, of course, I'm putting money into Acorn because that's what we're teaching is, right, putting money to work. And therefore, I'm putting money into this account called Acorn, which is basically where, for those of you that don't know about Acorn, well, basically you can take the cents from what you're buying. So if I go shop at Publix and I spend $9.30, the Acorn will take the other 70 cents and put it into a savings account. And you can even have Acorn where they'll double or triple your roundups. That's what they call it, rounding up, so they can double or triple it. Or they can also, you can put in regular monthly amounts or regular weekly amounts or even daily amounts into the savings account. So I love Acorn for that, because it's an easy way to, I hate to say mindlessly, but it is, without thinking, put money away and start getting it to work. Robinhood, I was short there because I decided to hold up on making some investments in the month of July. I picked that back up in August because I without getting into all the technicalities, there was a market sell-off on Monday. So I said, hey, this is a great time for me to consider buying some things that are going to be on sale, right? One thing I decided I wanted to buy was some stock in Lilly. And again, let me just make this point because I'm a CPA, just because I need to make sure that people know that I am your CPA. I am a CPA, but I'm not your CPA. So please consult your tax professional regarding any of these things that we're talking about. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not licensed. I'm not giving out investment advice. This is only for educational and information purposes only that I'm saying these things. So that said, I made a play, decided to put a couple of $100 into Lilly's stock because it's a pharmaceutical. I think there's some drugs they're working on that I think are going to be, that could be very profitable. when they come to fruition. So I just said, hey, I just will go ahead and make a play there. And that's what I decided to do in August. So that number will be different in the month of August. And then, of course, I'm putting money into my Ally savings account, a little bit lower than what I budgeted for. I think that's going to change in August. I got to look at why, because that's an automatic the payments for me in terms of money that's going in there. So maybe one of the payments, maybe because of the timing, is in either June or in August. So that's a little off. And then I didn't budget for giving some additional money to my son, his allowance. There was some bank fees that I had to pay that I didn't budget for, and there were just some other withdrawals that I made. So at the end of the day, right, this is the bottom line here. This is what's most important, is that my total expenses were budgeted to be like 41,000. That's a whole lot, but I only had actually like 28,000 in expenses, and therefore I had some money left over. This is really where I want to be in terms of budgeting, right? I want to be where I'm either positive or even at zero, but I don't want to be where I'm negative, because that means that I'm short. I'm spending more than I've got coming in, and that's problematic. So I'm on my way. We'll see what it looks like when we do August, but hopefully you'll find this instructive. Hopefully you all are doing your budgets as well. I know when I did the budget presentation, some of y'all asked for the template. So hopefully you all are budgeting and tracking what money you've got going in. And hopefully, more importantly, as we talk about and what this really was birthed out of, not just my brother talking about it, but also out of one of the laws of being able to build wealth, or to be able to put more money and fatten your purse, as they say in The Richest Man in Babylon, is the ability to find ways to save money so that you can invest. You see that I've started my investment journey. I hope that you've started your investment journey. And so therefore, I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Imperfect CPA, where we learn and we talk through how to make our money work. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, like and subscribe, like and follow on Facebook. My name is where you can find me on Facebook. On Instagram, you can find me at EMAXCPA, and on YouTube, you can find me at EMAXCPA. So look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Imperfect CPA.